Friends and fellows, hello. It's time to discuss some tapes. I'm Joe, and as always, well, I guess this is the second episode, so we haven't really gotten to the habit-forming stage of the show's development yet. But as I'd like it to be, we will discuss today on the Discussion of Tapes program 3 tapes. One new, one old, and one very, very weird in this particular case. To begin, we look at Dude York's most recent output from 2019, Falling. Falling came out, I believe, back in July. I had this pre-ordered. It came to my door the day after release. I was super excited for this album, and I'll be real with you, it really delivered. This is a fantastic, fun, energetic, but at the same time really melancholy and just very emotionally affecting album to come from this band, especially coming off of the heels of their 2017 album, Sincerely, which is one of my favorite albums, not only of that year, but really ever. This tape is a pleasant green, translucent, looks great. You can see the tape on the inside, just kind of like, it kind of fits the theming of the album too. It's like sort of a party, you know, the green's a fun color, right? We look at the J card here, we've got some liner notes, nice image of a flower, and I love this cover art, the cake that's been like stepped on. I think that really fits with the theme of the album to an extent. You have, coming off of Sincerely, which had a lot of songs that were like cake, there's unfortunately some downers that seem to have come in the band's like lyrical writing process, and that might be representative of whatever has cut this cake into the 4 pieces it has. This album is a little bit different actually from their prior 2 outputs. More of this album is written by Claire England than is written by Peter Richards. All right. Claire, the bassist, did 2 songs on Sincerely. She did Love Is and Tonight, which were 2 fantastic songs, 2 of the best songs in the album. And I think the other, like, 12 tracks were all Peter. This one, it seems to be about half and half Claire and Peter songs. I didn't actually do the math on that. Maybe I should have. I think it's really interesting when you have 2 lead singers in a band like this album does from Dude York. It's really fascinating to see the way that they both approach being kind of at the front of the band. And in this album in particular, I thought it was really interesting. Near the beginning of the album, Claire's tracks are much more optimistic, it seems like. There's a direct lyric in Longest Time, I Won't Be Scared of Love. When you come into I'm the One for You is a really optimistic, like, energetic song. And number 6, Unexpected. There are a lot of tracks on here from Claire that are like really excited about the concept of falling, and of course that's the 8th track on the album, probably my favorite track on the album. This idea that it's an album about love, and it's about falling, and it's about the kind of danger but the enjoyment, the risk of what's kind of scary but at the same time so enthralling and so great about the idea of love of another. And I think Claire channels that really well. She's got this kind of ability to be hopeful but anxious at the same time, something that I think is really hard to pull off, something I know I don't personally pull off very well, even though I'd say that's a lot of the time my mood. And on the other hand, you have Peter, who seems to be hurt. Peter's lyrics, especially on the 2nd track, Box, which is another fantastic one, is far less optimistic. He really seems like pessimistic. You know, like the main chorus of Box is, I'll never love again. And so it's very interesting to see these 2 kind of play off of each other as the album goes on. I just think that's a really interesting way to do an album, and something you don't really see from a lot of bands, because not a lot of bands have multiple front people. I don't know, there's something really special about the way that they play off of each other. Every song is unique. Every song is just a little bit different, and it's like a coming out kind of as a band, almost a maturation in a way that I really appreciate. I still love Sincerely. I still think it's a fantastic album, and I think this is just a really good piece in a progression in a history of a band, and I'm really excited, I guess, for what comes next, even though I'm going to take a lot of time and appreciate what we have now in Falling. For something old, let's take something out of my Buick that I used to bump back in the days of freshman year of college. Phil Collins, No Jacket Required. This album is, I think, my mom's favorite album, so it gets the Joe's mom stamp of approval. If I'm wrong about that, Mom, please correct me. I definitely bought this used. I don't remember when. The one thing I know is that this case is not the one it came in, and you can kind of tell by the way that like the card doesn't stick into the case itself. And this is probably my favorite bit of it. It still has this like warranty guarantee. I could return this to Harbor Records, I suppose is what it would be called. This is $9, and if I were to return this before June 20th of 1985, I would get it replaced for free. So hey, you know, that's pretty good. On the inside, we have just like, you know, liner notes and a nice pic of Phil himself. And the front cover is really iconic. I love this front cover. Just a nice big red Phil. One of the creepiest things in the world is if you put this album into your iTunes library now, there is an updated version of the cover that he did. And if you're not expecting it, there's just like an aged Phil Collins like staring at you instead of this Phil Collins in like his 30s. There's a Phil Collins in his 60s just like staring back, and it's really weird to look back at. It's like the portrait of Dorian Gray, except it's the album art of Phil Collins. It's like as he aged, they let the album age with him. Got a nice dirty white cassette, evident of years of use, definitely from somebody else before I had it, and then I had it and played it in my shitty Buick. And first time I played it, it sounded really bad. When I played it on my new this Jensen here that I bought a couple months ago, it sounded horrible. Like, it really did not sound good, and I didn't quite understand why, but after a couple more listens, the kinks seemed to have ironed themselves out. So yeah, I don't know, this is a really good album. Obviously it's a classic. I don't really need to tell people that Phil Collins is No Jacket Required is a classic. I do find it kind of surprising that an album like this exists at all. This is a guy who was the drummer in a prog rock band who broke off, who became the frontman of said prog rock band because his lead singer went solo, and then he went solo, stayed with the band though. There is never going to be a No Jacket Required again, a prominent pop album from a balding white man in his 30s, number one, and then number two, just the story of somebody leaving a rock group to become a pop star. I don't think that's really going to happen again. You see, in a way, I guess you see this in some of the, like, what was the guy from One Direction broke off? Zayn, when he broke off, he had an album, and like all the members of Fifth Harmony, I guess, are making their own albums now, but still, it's not quite the same as like Phil Collins. You know, all of them are like, I don't want to be mean to Phil Collins, but like, I don't know, Phil Collins doesn't look like a pop guy. He doesn't look like a guy who's gonna have like #1 pop hits, but yet he put out a fantastic pop album. God, every track on here is an absolute banger. Susudio, Only You and I Know. God, I Don't Want to Know. Who Said I Would? Take Me Home, ending out on Take Me Home, absolute classic. I don't need to recommend No Jacket Required to anybody, because this should be required listening for everybody if you love pop music. But regardless, I am very happy to have this tape in my collection. The history of it, I believe I bought this at a Half Price Books my senior year of high school, and just have had it ever since. This is one of the rare tapes that I've had before college. There were different points in my life when I was buying these. This comes from the period where I was just looking for something to put in my Buick because I only had so much space for so many CDs, and I just wanted to have something cheap I could put in there, purely like utilitarian. Finally, let's discuss something a little bit odd, something we don't talk about very often in the present day because it's kind of disappeared from us, and that is the degradation of physical magnetic tape media, as exemplified by this cursed tape of Madonna's Like a Virgin. When playing this tape, Madonna sounds about a register lower, kind of sounds like she's dying, and the tape sounds like the deck is going to catch fire. That happened to a friend of mine. It was her VCR. She was playing a copy of Rugrats in Paris, and the VCR caught fire. And they had to throw out the VCR and the copy of Rugrats in Paris, unfortunately. Nothing that bad has happened with Like a Virgin here, which I got for $2 at Record City in Hillcrest, San Diego. This is a great album. I mean, not my favorite Madonna album. My favorite Madonna album is actually probably a compilation, You Can Dance. Wait, do I have that CD? Yeah! Look at that bad boy. Check that one out. Bright red cover. I genuinely think Into the Groove is one of the best songs of all time, and the two versions of it on this CD are well worth the $4 I paid for it. I believe also at Record City in beautiful Hillcrest, San Diego, California. One time I found a Starbucks cup full of vomit in Hillcrest, sitting on the stoop of a house, and when I came back the next day, it was still there. Nothing really interesting about that, about the J card or anything. That's just pure white. Nice image of Madonna. Siccione. That's her last name, right? The YouTube essayist Magdalene Rose had a great video entitled Media Loss in the Age of Streaming, which looked at media loss from like a completely different angle, where it was like, oh, what the... Great YouTube essayist named Magdalene Rose had a video entitled Media Loss in the Age of Streaming, which looks at the loss of media from a more ephemeral angle, the idea of losing access to media you once had, rather than in this physical sense where I can still hold on to what is ostensibly a Madonna tape, but within itself it's like kind of lost what makes it a good tape. Really turns this, like, I would not listen to this album for enjoyment. I would listen to it for enjoyment in the way of like, check it out, I got a cursed Madonna tape. But it's, I don't know, it's a really interesting way this kind of rot, the way that this goes, you can almost feel like the art held within this, like dying, being lost to time, and luckily this still is going to remain. You know, the album Like a Virgin by Madonna is still going to be accessible, but there are so many different records that were released to cassette that I don't know, you know, if we're ever going to see them again. Let's say, I don't know if there's a possible, this is a random tape I'm pulling out of here. How about this orange tape, Hit List Egypt by Yala? You know, that's not going to be online. I really doubt that anybody's like saving that. This Egyptian hit list from 1990. So shit, what's going to happen? Like, when this degrades, and this will all degrade, you know, it's just going to be lost forever. Isn't that kind of scary? Like, in a way? I don't know. Anyway, I'll see y'all next time. Thanks so much for sticking around with the Discussion of Tapes program, and as far as I know, that's all. Have a good one. I'll just duck out of frame, I guess.